something outside the universe.
My argument is that such a wave function exists.
Yeah, and while this is all certainly, you know, interesting to speculate upon, you know, like I said, for physics guys late at night, when it's one of those where
Stoned.
ultimately I don't think that it is that you're even talking in a realm that is the least bit relevant to people who are practicing believers, right? Believers in God, you know, Christians, active churchgoers, just your you know, people at the tea parties, you know, whoever, you know, just Sunday go to meeting folks. When they think of the God they believe in, they're not thinking in terms of, why, yes, this whole notion of self-collapsing wave functions can, this really isn't the core of what's going on in actual religious belief. So while it's fascinating as some sort of intellectual abstruse, you know, exercise and thought experiments, it really doesn't get to the core of what real believers believe in, why they believe in it, and how it affects culture.
You know, another thing that seems to come out is that at the end of these kind of really abstruse, you know, scientific-sounding arguments, what you wind up with is now we have this thing and we'll call it God. But it doesn't really, I mean, but calling something a God doesn't really capture the full concept that most people have in mind when they say there is a God. I mean, you know, when they talk about like whether there's a heaven and a hell, whether it answers prayers, whether things you do sexually are bad to it. You know, if you can just take things and label them God, like you could say, oh, there's a particle outside the universe and I'll call it God. But that's not really more interesting than saying my cup is God.
Yeah, and again, to most believers, I think that an argument like this ultimately would feel very hollow to them, because to them, God is not just some sort of a quantum particle doing quantum stuff, right? It's a big man who, and he loves me, and he sent his son for me, and it's all very anthropomorphized and personal. And while we may dismiss that as, you know, silly and mythical and what have you, and a bunch of fables, that really is what's going on in the mind of actual believers.
Right.
That's the concept of God they take seriously.
Well, I mentioned at I just put this in my video. This is just a generic God I'm arguing for. This could be. I'm personally a panentheist, which is a little bit different than pantheism.
Okay.
The universe is within the mind of God. So it's compatible with. The argument I give itself is compatible. It could be either pantheism, deism, pantheism. I mean, you could kind of modify it from there into sort of a
so I mean,
a religious, you know, emanationist-based.
I guess I'm less interested in how you get to some kind of scientific rationalization that there is a God, as knowing what you believe and why you believe it. As basically, what is the thing that you're calling God? Can you detail what its properties are? What is it like?
It's the wave function of the universe. It's self-collapsing.
Okay, well, let's say that I believe in the wave function of the universe, and I'll let you label it God. So what?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so then,
how have we learned anything new about the universe by sticking this three-letter word on it?
Because we've now discovered that because of or, it's a wave function, but it's also a mental wave function.
Well,
it's not a normal wave function where you just collapse it within a particle. Because there are no particles outside the universe, it has to be a self-collapsed wave function, which Penrose points out as a mind.
Right, but if I decided not to call it God, but instead I decided to call it Herman, am I losing any information from that?
No.
Okay.
It would still be a universal mind, though, which I thought was kind of a cool thing to let you guys chew on for a bit there.
I mean, it depends on what you consider a mind, and I mean, you know, collapsing wave functions is something that things without minds also do, I think.
Right.
But I mean, again, it depends on the mind. So
the argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, it's interesting. You're moving into esoteric territories that most actual believers don't really mess with. But yeah, again, I think that operating off of Penrose's premises, it does just seem like another way of finding stuff about the universe that you can call God. And until I know, as a scientific layman and as a layman in physics, until I see that there's some sort of that's a legitimate way of looking at the universe, if that's a way that increases my understanding of things, I'm, you know, again, going to be wary to just sort of rush into it. So
right.
Anyway, yeah.
Thanks for calling.
If you wanted perhaps a religious component, and this is just a little side thing, this is something other things that, because actually there are a fair number of religious theists in the physics department. I'm not going to get into this right now, but
Okay.
just do a little research on Carl Jung and his association with the physicist Wolfgang Pauli. And I won't get into it now, but just dig out what you see and tell me if it's not a little weird. So.
Okay.
Well, I want to put you on hold because Mark Lowy, our token physicist, actually wanted to have a chat with you off the air. And we're going to move on to other callers. I do recommend The Emperor's New Mind. It's a really interesting book that covers a lot of scientific disciplines, and then it makes some out there claims that some people aren't sure about. But he's a very well written guy. So thanks for calling.
Thanks, Johan.
Yes, sir. Nice
Bye.
to be on.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to give Randy in Houston one more try.
One more. If
Okay.
he's still.
Randy, are you there? 3, 2, 1. Walk the plank.
Zombies got him.
Okay.
Line 2 is.
Wait
yeah.
a minute.
Wait, did you just hang up on somebody who wasn't Randy?
I'm not sure.
Uh-oh.
Was that? Oh no. Is this Randy?
Hello?
Randy.
Hello?
Randy?
Yes.
Ah!
I believe I just hung up on Pat in Pasadena.
Uh-oh.
Pat,
and I
please-
didn't mean to. Please call back. All right.
How you doing, guys?
We're glad you could finally join us.
Yes.
I am too.
Okay. What can we do for you today?
Well, first let me say thank you guys for doing this show. You guys are like professors of logic and reason. I think that's probably one of the noblest causes.
Professors with no
for humankind.
credentials
Oh,
at
no,
all.
we're not. We're not professors of anything. We're just.
Well, you kind of attack things from using logic and reason to
We do our
determine
best.
what is and isn't real.
Well, thanks.
Thanks.
But my question is, I'm going to play the God's advocate here. Religion as a world occurrence. The fact that religion occurs independently throughout most of the countries, and, most of the world, all throughout history, and what implications that could have as far as using it maybe as empirical evidence of something. The
Can
fact
you
that it is there, in almost every country. It's very prevalent throughout all of ancient history.
define what religion is?
Belief in a supernatural figure
Okay.
of any kind.
Okay. So basically, believing in stuff without evidence is a common occurrence.
It appears to be.
Or, yeah, and the institutionalization of these kinds of beliefs, right? Like the way they organize and become.
Yeah.
Okay.
Historically, they've all, it's kind of happened independently
Right.
of a single individual spreading an idea.
Right, but I mean, under that rubric, the things that could fall under the definition of religion are all over the map. I mean, like for instance, we've got people who believe things like God, answers prayers, and then we've got like the Fred Phelpses who think that the vast majority of everybody is going to this horrible, very real, specific hell where they burn forever and ever for being gay.
And now we
then you
have self-collapsing wave functions.
Right.
So
You have a guy like the last caller who believed in a self-collapsing wave function. I see the person I hung up on, sorry, said that she believes in spiritual energy. And then
we'll
you have,
talk to her about that
You
soon.
have people who
Or it could be
believe
him.
in horoscopes.
Yeah.
And if there was something to this, you would think that they would converge on some recognizable concept that they agree on, that that actually comes together instead of believing all kinds of wildly different random claims and then putting them all under the umbrella of one word, which is religion.
Yeah, but I don't know that. I mean, I don't know if Randy's point is that. Well, maybe this means that there, like, one particular definition or belief in God must be a true one. Then I think that his point is that it seems to be a universal practice among the human race to just believe in supernatural stuff, to have this desire to think
not
that there is
necessarily
something.
a specific,
not a
specific labeling of a deity.
And that I think can just be
The fact that
explained.
there's some kind of deity in some form, in some different,
And I think that can just be explained culturally in very easy ways. If you look at the earliest beginnings of civilization, and you have people seeking to understand their world and lacking the tools that we have today in a post-scientific world to do it. So in a way, they would see the sun traveling across the sky every day, and then they'd see the moon at night, and they would not really know exactly what these things are, only that they were somehow out there and celestial and magnificent and beautiful. And so naturally they would perhaps build a mythology around these things in order to explain them. I mean, in a sense, if you look at it, superstitious beliefs, not just in gods, but even things like astrology. There was a time during which astrology was the best science people had. And in a sense, there was kind of a logic behind it, right? Because you could look at things like, all right, well, the sun's in the sky, and it helps our crops grow, okay? And then the moon is up there, and we can sort of use it to build a calendar around. So it looks like stuff in the sky affects our lives. So maybe all the rest of these things, all the other stars do that too. So that it was, again, just a process by which primitive cultures, pre-scientific cultures, just sought to understand the world. Now, in terms of coming up with gods about it, well, I think you can look at a very common practice that human beings do as well, which is that we anthropomorphize things. It helps us to put human faces on things in order that we can understand them on our own terms. So gods being a way to put a human face upon this big, vast, empty universe to make it seem a little less big and vast and empty and scary.
Yeah, I mean, like, even as a kid, do you ever, like, watch raindrops running down a windshield and think, oh, that raindrop's trying to get to that other raindrop, right?
Or just finding pictures and, like, animals in the clouds and things.
Yeah, I mean, people are basically...
The man in the moon, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
man on the moon.
People are... It could be a very natural evolution of early man trying to figure things out.
Sure, right. Yeah. And then as you form cultures and civilizations, some people learn that it's a very lucrative way to put yourself in power over.
Yeah, and you know what happens is that people develop some amount of respectability, and they start to mistakenly believe that that because people listen to them, that everything they say is right.
I think that's a really good interpretation of the prophets.
So you know, they're able to throw out things that may be wildly off base, but because they're already respected in some other capacity, people will say, "Oh yeah, big man in the sky, that makes sense."
Yeah.
And so people tend to reinforce each other's crazy ideas.
I think dissecting the origin of religion and how it kind of came to be and how we've applied it and developed it is really important in understanding, where we stand with religion today. It seems like there's a really big movement of people who are basically tired of it, in all forms.
Yeah,
so I appreciate you guys taking the time to take my call. And
thanks. Sorry we had
one thing I'd like to
trouble earlier.
Point out to you guys. Just real quick, what do you guys think we should do in light of the fact that most religion very well may be man-made and people come into grips with this, and how should we kind of approach that problem?
Keep arguing.
I mean, the problem being what? People learning that that religion is a man-made thing.
The fundamentalist faith.
Oh, okay.
People who that we're right no matter what. Much like Islam. How do you approach that problem in light of the fact that we're kind of uncovering evidence, especially for the God of Abraham, to say that this very likely historically is not true?
Yeah. Well, just to keep that freedom of speech thing going and speak your mind and don't. And this is a reason, you probably saw at the beginning of the show when we were talking about how the Pope was, coming down on atheists and being this is this is that kind of backlash that what we're seeing are these religious institutions that have for a very long time enjoyed a position of privilege in our culture, suddenly realizing that a lot of people don't see them as being all that privileged all that much. They're fallible human beings. They're in many cases guilty of crimes. They're guilty of just as many bad things as the sinners they like to wag their fingers at the pulpit every Sunday. And they don't like being called out on these things, and they're starting to see this authority that they have just enjoyed and taken advantage of, taken for granted for so many years, is being stripped away from them. Now, you're going to get a backlash from them because of that, but you just have to you have to realize that all you have to do is speak your mind, truth to power, all that kind of stuff.
I'm a fan of ridicule.
And just realize that the backlash is going to come, and just say, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm going to stick to my guns here, and I'm gonna if I see you guys doing bad stuff, I'm going to call you on it.
Well, again, guys, thanks for taking my call, and I still maintain that in the sense of education, you guys are very much professors of logic, and I thank you for it.
Oh, good girl.
Just said we're not.
Okay.
Well, thank you for calling.
You're too kind.
And we mean it.
Yes.